Have you ever felt a pair of eyes linger on you? Not as a fleeting glance, but as if they were reaching past the surface of who you are. Not looking at your body, not even at the curve of your smile, but at something far more intimate, your very essence. It is almost unsettling, the way another's gaze can cut through layers you thought were hidden. And yet, that look doesn't happen by accident. It is born from something deeper, something the conscious mind may deny, but the body, the energy, the soul cannot conceal. Carl Jung once hinted that what we repress in words always leaks through our gestures, our silences, our smallest reactions. That is why sometimes when someone sees you, their whole being betrays what they wish to keep secret. Think about it. Perhaps there is someone who seems to shift the very moment you walk into the room. Their voice changes tone, their posture stiffens or relaxes, their breath catches just slightly. You sense it without knowing why, as if their soul is speaking in a language only your presence can decode. Jung might have called this the synchronization of unconscious minds. A hidden dialogue taking place beneath awareness. You aren't imagining it. You're witnessing a silent conversation between two psyches, where defenses collapse and truth leaks through. This is why attraction rarely looks neat or polished. It doesn't parade itself with perfection. It shows up in awkwardness, in sudden laughter, in moments of unexplainable silence. The person who feels drawn to you might fumble with their words, play with their hands, avert their eyes, only to return to them again as though compelled. These are not coincidences. They are inner storms, little cracks in the armor that reveal the force they can't control. Why don't they simply admit it? Why not just say what they feel? Because to confess desire is to expose vulnerability, to step unguarded into a mirror that reflects not only longing, but also the wounds they've tried to keep hidden. Jung believed that real love doesn't only illuminate what is beautiful in us, it shines light on the shadows we avoid. And so, when someone feels more than they can bear to acknowledge, their unconscious takes over. Speaking in symbols, their conscious mind isn't ready to put into words. Maybe you've noticed their pupils dilate when you appear, or their voice soften in a way it never does with others. Maybe they keep finding reasons to be near you, even if they pretend it's by chance. These are not small details. They are the body shouting what the mouth refuses to speak. Jung once wrote that the soul knows what it needs long before the mind understands it. That is why someone may feel pulled toward you without explanation, as if remembering a story they never lived yet somehow recognize. Such attraction is not mere infatuation. It is memory without history, recognition without reason. And in that recognition lies both desire and fear. For some, your presence awakens not only longing, but forgotten pieces of themselves they are not ready to face. A glance that lasts too long can trigger not only chemistry, but buried emotions. And so they stumble. They laugh nervously. They retreat and return again, caught in a dance between what they crave and what terrifies them. Jung's idea of projection explains this mystery. When someone looks at you, they are not only seeing you, they are seeing themselves. Parts of their soul they have silenced, neglected, or longed for, now reflected back at them through your presence. That is why the attraction feels electric, inexplicable, even overwhelming. They are not just drawn to you, they are drawn to the part of themselves they recognize within you. This is where the archetypes of anima and animus emerge, the inner feminine within a man, the inner masculine within a woman. Often, when someone is irresistibly pulled toward another, It is because that person has awakened these inner archetypes, embodying qualities the soul has been yearning to meet. They cannot rationalize why they feel so connected, why they trust without history, why they sense closeness without reason. It is not logic. It is the unconscious recognizing its missing half. And so the dance begins. The nervous laughter, the teasing, the strange defensiveness, all of it is the psyche's attempt to handle a force too powerful to suppress. Sometimes this attraction doesn't look like warmth at all. It can show up as coldness, withdrawal, irritation, even denial. Not because they feel nothing, but because they feel too much. Jung warned that what we repress eventually appears outside as fate, and often the people we cannot ignore are the very mirrors of what we've avoided inside. This is why you must look beyond the surface. If someone seems to shift only in your presence, if their words stumble, if their energy trembles, if their mask slips just slightly, it is not random. It is the unconscious speaking, unfiltered, in a language older than words. You are not just meeting a person in those moments. You are encountering a soul trying, trembling, and failing to hide its truth. There comes a moment when what you're witnessing is no longer just attraction. It's a rupture in someone's carefully constructed persona. We all walk through life wearing masks, presenting to the world a version of ourselves that feels safe, acceptable, in control. Jung called this the persona, the outer shell we polish for others. But the truth of who we are leaks through when we are faced with someone who stirs something deep inside us. And when that happens, the mask cracks. If you've ever seen someone become strangely nervous around you, almost unlike themselves, it is because your presence has disrupted their persona. They choose their words more carefully, pause where there never used to be silence, stumble in the middle of sentences, or even say something and immediately try to correct it. They are not acting irrationally. They are acting truthfully, even if unconsciously. What you are seeing is not the curated version of them, but the raw soul, trembling, unsure of how to behave when confronted with someone who touches their depths. This is why their behavior often appears contradictory. One day, they seek closeness. The next, they withdraw. One moment, they seem open and present. The next, they appear distant or cold. Do not mistake this inconsistency for disinterest. It is often the opposite. It is too much interest, too much intensity for them to manage. They are not playing games. They are fighting with themselves. Inside, desire and fear are colliding. The soul wants to open, but the ego clings to control. This inner struggle spills into their behavior, and what you see on the outside is not confusion. It's conflict. Jung understood that love is not simply a beautiful, soft light. It is also a mirror that reveals our wounds, our unhealed parts, our forgotten dreams. When someone feels drawn to you, they are not just seeing beauty in you. They are being confronted with their own shadow, all the things they tried to bury. Love pulls those things to the surface, not to torment us, but to integrate us, to make us whole. And that is terrifying for someone who has spent years hiding from themselves. That is why so many people run from what they desire most. The depth of feeling threatens their self-image, their defenses, their illusions of safety. To desire you is to risk being undone, to risk facing themselves in a way they cannot escape. So instead of surrendering, they hide behind distance, sarcasm, coldness, or even irritation. But don't be fooled. Beneath those defense mechanisms lies a soul in chaos, a heart overwhelmed by what it feels but cannot express. Think of the times when someone becomes overly defensive around you, teasing you in ways that feel strange, or acting irritated for no reason. This is not hostility, it's displacement. The intensity of attraction creates tension, and the psyche often doesn't know how to release it. What looks like resistance is sometimes nothing more than love wearing a disguise. Behind the clumsy defense is someone who is trembling, someone whose balance has been disrupted simply by your presence. If you watch closely, you will see how the unconscious speaks through the body. A breath that quickens, hands that don't know where to rest, a voice that softens only for you, a glance that lingers a fraction too long before breaking away. These are not surface gestures. They are cracks in the dam, glimpses of the soul leaking through. And though they may never admit it, their body is confessing what their words are not yet ready to reveal. It is easy to assume that if someone doesn't act clearly, they must not feel anything. But Jung's depth psychology shows the opposite. Confusion is often proof of intensity. When nothing is at stake, behavior flows effortlessly, predictably. But when the soul trembles, when something within us is shaken at the core, behavior becomes unpredictable, messy, contradictory. That chaos is not emptiness. It is abundance. It is a heart overflowing with feelings it cannot organize. So pay attention, not only to what someone says, but to what escapes them. Watch the unplanned, the spontaneous, the accidental, the way their energy shifts when you arrive, the way they lose control of small gestures, the way silence falls heavier in your presence than anywhere else. These are not accidents. They are revelations. The unconscious always betrays the truth, even when the conscious mind resists it. This is why attraction, when real, is never just chemical. It is symbolic. You become more than yourself in the eyes of another. You become a symbol, a mirror, a trigger. You awaken something they have been missing. Perhaps freedom, tenderness, intensity, or even a forbidden desire. You embody not just a person they want, but an archetype their soul has been yearning to encounter. And each time they see you, that archetype is activated, charging the air with energy they can't explain. Think of it like electricity in the atmosphere. You don't see the current, but you feel it in the static, in the way time seems to bend, in the way silence feels alive. This is not just two people meeting. It is two unconscious worlds colliding, revealing to each other what words could never carry. And perhaps this is why love feels so sacred and terrifying at once. Because it does not only give us what we want, it shows us what we lack. It does not only flatter us, it unmasks us. It does not only soothe, it shakes. True attraction, Jung would argue, is a force of individuation, a push toward wholeness, where the parts of ourselves we've hidden must finally come to light. That is why the one who makes you feel the most alive also makes you feel the most vulnerable. They are not just a person. They are your mirror, your test, your invitation to face yourself. Something strange happens when someone carries feelings too deep to confess. Their entire energy shifts in your presence, almost as if the air itself thickens between you. They may try to carry on as usual, but their body betrays them in small ways. A smile that flickers without reason, a glance that lingers too long, a silence that grows heavy because words suddenly feel inadequate. These moments are not meaningless. They are fragments of truth escaping through the cracks. Jung believed the unconscious always seeks expression. What we bury does not vanish. It waits, pressing against the surface until it finds a way out. And often, that release happens not through words, but through symbols, tiny gestures, restless movements, and the subtle trembling of presence. If you've ever wondered why someone's hands fidget when you're near, why their breathing changes, Why their voice softens only for you, it is not random. It is the soul speaking through the body, declaring what the mind is too afraid to name. But here lies the paradox. The more someone feels, the harder they may try to conceal it. They build walls. They retreat behind coldness or indifference, as though distance could protect them from their own emotions. This is why love often arrives disguised as contradiction. A person might seem distant one moment, yet unable to stop seeking your presence the next. They may act uninterested, yet their every unconscious signal points in the opposite direction. It is not a lack of care. It is the overwhelming presence of it. This is what makes attraction both beautiful and agonizing. When someone feels too much, they don't always move closer. Sometimes they step back, not because their heart isn't burning, but because it is burning too brightly for them to endure. Jung warned us that what we repress in ourselves, we inevitably meet outside as fate. And so, the people we are most drawn to often mirror the very parts of ourselves we have tried hardest to avoid. This is why they unsettle us, why we cannot remain composed in their presence. They don't just awaken desire, they awaken the shadow. The shadow, Jung said, is the hidden reservoir of all we deny, fear, or reject about ourselves. And when someone stands before us, embodying something that calls this shadow to the surface, we feel both desire and resistance. Love, then, is not just the pursuit of beauty, it is the confrontation with truth. And truth is never simple. So when someone behaves inconsistently, when they approach and withdraw, when they reveal and conceal, do not be misled into thinking their feelings are weak. In fact, it is usually the opposite. Weak feelings create clarity. Strong feelings create chaos. Their contradictions are the signature of intensity, proof that they are wrestling with something bigger than themselves. And if you learn to read between the lines of behavior, you'll notice the signs. The way their eyes light up when you enter a room, even if they quickly look away. The way laughter comes too easily, too nervously, as though it has no real reason. The way silence settles between you, like a third presence, thick and undeniable. None of this is coincidence. It is the unconscious confessing what the conscious mind cannot yet say aloud. There is another mystery here, synchronicity. Jung described it as meaningful coincidences that defy explanation, moments when inner worlds and outer events align in ways that feel fated. Have you noticed how often you run into this person unexpectedly, in places you never planned? How their presence seems to cross your path at the strangest times? It is not always deliberate. The unconscious seeks what it longs for, even when the conscious mind resists. Silent longing makes choices for us, pulling us closer to what we crave, even if we tell ourselves otherwise. That is why attraction feels like a force beyond logic. It isn't strategy, it isn't decision, it isn't calculation. It simply happens. You may tell yourself it's coincidence, but the deeper truth is that the soul recognizes what the mind is too slow to understand. And so, paths cross, eyes meet, silences swell, all carrying the weight of meaning too vast for reason to hold. When you become this symbol for someone, you are no longer just yourself in their eyes. You represent something larger, freedom they have suppressed, tenderness they have denied, depth they have avoided. You awaken a part of their inner archetypes, the anima or animus, that has been waiting in silence, and the activation of this inner archetype is not small. It shakes them, rearranges them, makes them see the world differently. That is why they behave strangely. That is why they can't act normal around you. Their unconscious has already decided you matter, long before their conscious mind can accept it. This is why it is dangerous to underestimate the quiet signs. The quick glance, the nervous smile, the restless hands, the sudden stillness. These are not meaningless. They are sacred fragments of truth, shards of the soul slipping through the cracks of control. And if those fragments only appear in your presence, you are witnessing something powerful. The unconscious has chosen you as its mirror. But there is also a warning here. Such intensity does not always come peacefully. Attraction can awaken joy, but it can also awaken fear. When someone feels too much, they may resist, deny, or even push you away. Not because their soul is silent, but because it is too loud. In those contradictions, in that tension between approach and withdrawal, between longing and fear, lies the unmistakable truth. They feel far more than they are ready to admit. So look closer, not at the polished mask they show the world, but at what slips through when they forget to guard themselves. Look at the trembling, the contradictions, the chaos, because it is there, in the unguarded moments, that you will see the soul's real confession. When someone truly feels for you, the signs are never loud at first. They whisper in the shifts of their voice, in the stillness that suddenly grows between words, in the way their presence transforms in your company. It is never about grand declarations or perfect confessions. Instead, it is the unconscious spilling over, revealing truths the mind isn't ready to surrender. And though they may never put it into words, their energy says it all. The unconscious, Jung taught us, never lies. It speaks in symbols, in gestures, in unguarded moments. And if you learn to see with the eyes of the soul, you will recognize these hidden truths. The trembling hands, the awkward laughter, the breath that changes when you draw near, all of these are confessions disguised as accidents. They do not happen around everyone. They happen around you, because you are the mirror that stirs their depths. We often believe that love should be simple, that attraction should be straightforward, that when someone wants us, they will say it clearly. But the truth is far more complex. Real love, deep love, doesn't just expose desire. It exposes vulnerability. And not everyone is prepared to stand naked in the mirror of another soul. That is why the strongest feelings are often the most hidden. Not because they aren't there, but because they are too much to carry openly. If you sense this shift in someone, if their entire presence seems to rewrite itself when you arrive, then trust what you are seeing. It is not an illusion. It is not a fantasy. It is the language of the unconscious, revealing what the conscious mind denies. The small gestures, the contradictions, the silence, they are louder than words. They are the body's way of confessing a truth the heart cannot yet dare to speak. And yet, this mystery is not only about them, it is also about you. Because when someone projects a hidden part of themselves onto you, you are no longer just you. You are a symbol. You become a reflection of their forgotten tenderness, their buried longing, their unclaimed wholeness. That is why their soul reacts so powerfully in your presence. You are not merely an object of desire. You are a doorway. You awaken in them the very thing they've been running from, the very thing they've secretly been seeking. And this is why love is never only about romance. It is also about awakening. It forces us to face ourselves, to integrate what we have hidden, to reconcile with the shadow we've tried to deny. The person who makes us tremble is not just showing us who they are showing us who we are. Love is the great mirror, the most merciless and the most merciful. It reveals us, it heals us, it shatters us, and it remakes us. So if you ever find yourself wondering whether someone feels more for you than they admit, Don't just listen to their words. Look deeper. Pay attention to what slips out when they are unguarded. Notice how they breathe when you are near, how their laughter loses its balance, how silence becomes charged with something unspeakable. Notice if they run into you more often than chance could explain, if their eyes search for you even when they pretend not to. These are not accidents. They are synchronicities, the unconscious guiding them toward what it craves, even when they resist. And perhaps the most important truth is this: when the soul recognizes what it needs, the body cannot help but respond. Even if the mind resists, even if fear builds walls, the unconscious leaks through. And if you are the one who awakens this in them, you will see it. Not in declarations, not in certainty, but in contradictions, in trembling, in the chaos that erupts only in your presence. That chaos is not confusion. It is confession. Jung once said that love is often the place where we meet our fate. And maybe that is what these signs are. Fate speaking in symbols, reminding us that connection is never random. The people who stir us most deeply do so because they touch something ancient within us, something we have always known but never named. And when you recognize this, you stop chasing clarity in words and start listening to the truth that vibrates in silence. So the next time you wonder whether someone feels more for you than they admit, remember this: words can lie, appearances can deceive, but the soul never hides. If their body speaks differently in your presence, if their eyes give them away, if their contradictions bloom only around you, then they feel more than you think, more than they dare to say, more than they may even know themselves. And maybe this is the greatest secret of all, that love doesn't always announce itself in clear sentences. Sometimes it appears as nervous laughter, as silences that tremble, as glances that linger. Sometimes it reveals itself only in the way someone loses their balance in your presence. And in those moments, you are not simply witnessing attraction. You are witnessing the soul, raw and unguarded, whispering its truth against the will of the mind. This is the mystery Jung left us with, that the unconscious always seeks wholeness, and it often finds it through another. And if you are the one who awakens that hidden longing in someone else, then you are already a part of their journey, whether they confess it or not. So look closer, listen deeper, feel beyond the obvious. Because in the trembling, in the contradictions, in the silence, you may already hold the answer you've been waiting for.